Welcome to FMRPG, where tonight we're going to cast off some of our illusions at being salient and just have an old-fashioned or whatever drink you had before this and talk about some RPG-ness and other things. But I am Richie Buzzkill. I have with me Lady Kayla. What's up, Lady Kayla?
The usual suspects are back.
Yeah, well, clearly. And always suspect is Noland. What's up, Noland?
Doing good. Made myself a La Louisiana for a cocktail and hanging out.
I'm not that far into this drink, and I'm too drunk to talk about what the hell's in that or what that is.
Yeah, it's like a Manhattan from Louisiana with absinthe and Peychaud's bitters and stuff.
I see. Fancy. So what have you been up to, Noland? Besides drinking way too fancy a drink.
Let's see here. I think you're all aware that on our Saturday night online games, I'm running some old Marvel Phase Rip, as was inspired by our recent episode on Supers here. RBK said, we should do Supers. We haven't done Supers forever. And I said, of course. RBK never gets the game he wants unless he runs it. So I'm going to run the game.
That's true. My tastes do tend to run in the opposite or tangential direction from what a lot of the other people, mostly wanting fantasy role-playing games.
I mean, plus, like, I played so much Phase Rip in the 90s. I could probably do it with most of my higher brain functions gone. It's in my lizard brain somewhere. Memorize these stupid Phase Rip rules.
Well, as it turns out, it's actually easy. It's hard to get into, easy to run, as far as I can tell. And
yeah,
I mean, I think last we left it, we were talking about we're gonna start running it. So, but hey, we rolled random characters, and I swear,
random.
all random, like the most random. And guess what, everybody? Your old pal, Mr. Buzzkill, rolled a vampire. I couldn't have planned that better. Like, I couldn't have picked, like, what do I want to play in Marvel? Like, oh, I'm a vampire. So, and I've got, I know this is like getting into tell me about your character territory, which is always a bit of faux pas, but let's just say his real name is John Cross and his superhero name is Justicar. So, and it's the 1980s, right, Noland?
So yes.
So he looks like a reject from The Cure.
Yeah. I decided I needed to turn it a little sideways somehow. I couldn't have just a straight up, Supers world, and I didn't want to do kind of a boring, I shouldn't say it's boring. Like, I didn't want to do too shiny happy of a, kind of four colors, golden silver age kind of comics code thing. But I also didn't want to do like The Boys or Watchmen or anything like that. That was too dark. But, so I've got kind of a little more morally gray, 1980s Reaganomics, like.
Yes, but I am not morally gray. Let me just tell you right now. First, but second of all, Kayla is playing the most bright side character.
A literal god of light.
Yeah, somebody got really lucky with their dice.
Yeah. She rolled the god result.
I was like, is this okay? You have a 1 in 100 chance of rolling a god. So.
Is it that unlikely?
Yes, I believe it is 1 in 100.
1 in 100.
99, I think. Or
I think it's 200, but yeah, not super important.
No, I'm pretty sure that it's just one.
You're making me look.
Just one number. You don't have this chart memorized? You've got like half of them memorized.
Yeah. I'm hoping that our characters balance out.
Oh, you're right. It is only one number. Yep.
Well, so is undead, actually. But
Yeah. Undead is also only one number. Yeah. That whole range from 89 to 00 is
You start
very,
getting
very,
into
very,
the
very special,
shenanigans.
very special thing. Actually, we have 3 special snowflakes in the power party because our our audience's friend Paul also rolled the ethereal gas, character, right? That's another special snowflake out of that bottom 10% of the chart.
we also have a gynoid, as Woodfin is want to call her, and a ninja or altered mutant, or was it
Altered human or induced
altered?
mutant. Yeah.
So
They were called a couple things during the course of the history of the game, but yeah. One of that, the altered human or whatever, is just the whoever fell in radioactive liquid or got too close to gamma rays or got bitten by a spider or whatever. That's what they call that.
a bit of a catch-all term.
Yeah.
For all those.
For you used to be normal, but now you got something crazy happen to you, and now you got power.
Or most of the characters that Stan Lee created.
Right.
Yeah, and you have I think you have the 80s big hair, big collars, skinny ties.
Yeah, I said it in about 86. In my mind it's mentally about 86 because I want it to be moving out of the brown 70s 80s and into the neon 80s 80s. Right. And you have to wait. The neon 80s don't come for a little bit. You have to wait a little into the 80s for that. So
Well, I am excited to continue, and the fact that I almost killed one of the bad guys by draining their blood in the last fight in the last game doesn't bode well for anyone else.
Yeah, we may have to talk about your popularity shortly.
I'm fine with this. This is not unlike the fact that the background for my character does read like the background for a vampire character. I'm not particularly surprised I'm going to be completely unliked by the public.
Yeah, being seen in public drinking someone's blood is not a good look.
I mean, if you're good, as long as I'm not suffering karma penalties, I'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, she was a super villain, but yeah.
I do have mind control. Anyways, yeah.
I do find it hilarious that your vampire is teamed up with, in some way, the fucking god of light.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what my weaknesses are is kind of difficult, because otherwise, we would never meet.
Yeah. And funny enough, with the roles and the charts and everything, mine got so overpowered that when we were going, who feels like they're too overpowered and needs a weakness, I was like, yes, pick me. I would like a weakness, please. So not only did I get what I asked for, but I got overkill of what I asked for, which is even more amazing, in that I am allergic to dark. And if I get exposed to darkness, I will die. Full stop.
It's potentially lethal. Yeah, it's not full stop, but yes, it is potentially lethal to you to be in total
I thought
darkness.
it was definitely lethal. That'll be fun.
For long enough, it definitely. If you're in there long enough, it definitely will be.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I didn't know
it's perfection.
My car was hanging out. I just kind of assumed that he had a kind of moth to the flame kind of thing.
Look, I have an agenda, and I have a list, and I can see my opportunities to use my agenda and my list to move things forward after. Well, and tell them a little bit more about the background of your current situation.
The setup for the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just kind of crazy 1980s superheroes. I wanted a kind of dynamic environment. You usually want to set up a campaign frame kind of where either something's, either there's a status quo that's about to break down, or there's a status quo that's just broken down and everything. Right? So, I made up this NPC that used to be the superhero to end all superheroes, the Superman, or the Manhattan from
Dr. Man.
Dr. Manhattan, that's right. Dr. Manhattan, yeah. Just someone who could like think bad guys away with their brain, like just whatever. And this character arose kind of in World War II and was, helped resolve the war and helped, the next 40 years to come about, pretty straightforwardly. But then I just decided, before these guys came on the board, like he's just died. Like, so now, before there was no reason for anybody to be a superhero because like God can just think the bad guys out of existence, right? I call this character the Paragon. And they can just think this character, anybody out of existence that is a supervillain. And there's kind of also no point to being a superhero, even though people continue to develop superpowers, right? Because there's nothing to do as a superhero in that kind of perfectly orderly world. So I decided to throw the whole world into chaos now. All the heroes are coming back out again because somebody's got to do something about all this. And of course, the villains see their opportunity again with the God as the cop off the beat. There's now a chance for them also. So that's the background. And then 80s weirdness. John DeLorean is my Tony Stark replacement. I've got all kinds of weirdness.
And definitely when, I just figured when, Dr. Manhattan or the Paragon, whatever you want to call him, is in charge, there's definitely going to be some scumbags just under the radar that are doing stuff. So like Henry Kissinger is on my list.
Exactly.
Like it's just
oh yeah, no, that all's definitely still happening.
all those people are on my list, and I'm a 100-year-old vampire, so I know.
You just decided to wait it out. Yeah,
that's right. So we'll get back to that pretty soon, but it's been pretty much a blast here.
Glad you're enjoying it. I never know what it was kind of a spur of the moment thing where you're like, you should do supers. Okay, let's do supers. And then I just started plugging things together. And
well, thing about supers is I think you need to not overthink things for supers.
That's true. I didn't really overthink it too much. That's true.
Right. So we can, because it's supposed to be a 16-page throwaway book, right? That's the original thing about comic books. Is supposed to be like entertainment, and then you throw it away. We've become a collector of these things, and there are some definite amazing things in the comic book genre, but supers, especially at the table, I think should be a bit of a throwaway.
Don't think too hard about continuity. It's fine.
Right, exactly, because there's definitely going to be people that are or are not in the at the table at the time, and you got to work them back in. It's like, well, clearly they've just been actually, now that I think about it, I think somebody should do have like have a supers game where the GM is called the editor. And you kind of have more of this, like you're in a writing room kind of feel, and you're editing and you're using that sort of thing. I think could be really fun. Like no is like this.
Yeah. The old Sands of Time video game. Like no, not like that.
Right, exactly. Well, Kayla, what have you been up to lately?
Getting more children addicted to Dungeons and Dragons, of course,
Doing the best work. Doing the fine work.
Making more dice goblins and teaching them that roleplay and tabletop RPGs are awesome, and they should definitely do more of that. And also getting some therapy too, but the one is the hook, and then the other one just is the tag along.
Just like right below submarine right below the waves here as the fun ship sails in.
Pay no attention.
Oh, wait, I feel better. What the hell? Yeah, I was talking to a guy at I went and had my glasses adjusted, and I was talking to the guy and waiting for the glasses kind of get adjusted, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big video." He like looked at my T-shirt. That is like, "Is that a band T-shirt? What band is that?" And it was like, "No, it's my podcast." Because of course I'm that kind of that guy that wears his podcast T-shirt in the public, and is like, "Oh no, I do a role playing tabletop." And he's like, "Oh well, I don't play tabletop, but I play a lot of video games." So it's like, "Well, what?" And he's like, "Oh well, almost all video games are now partially role playing games, right?" So like we talked about that and politics, and I was like, "Oh, just encouraging him to like give it a try." Like he's like, "Oh, I like Resident Evil. That's the latest one." I was like, "Oh, you should try Call of Cthulhu." He's like, "Oh yeah, I love." I told him, he's like, "Oh, I love a slow burn." I was like, "Oh yeah." So I just, you know, having a conversation, trying to convert people while waiting for my glasses to be adjusted, like the big giant nerd I am.
Dude,
You guys are
I
better
would be
evangelists. You guys are
I
better
was
evangelists than I am.
I was just thinking, I would so be more welcoming to someone knocking on my door and being like, "Have you heard about this new role playing game?" Like, "No, I haven't. Come on in." And this is how Kayla gets murdered, by the way. But
Well, yeah, I mean, I have been told that like if you tell the Mormons that come to your door that you're doing chores, you can get free labor out of them. But that I haven't
Ooh,
tested that yet. But you
it's
know,
like a life hack right
yeah,
there.
I'm doing chores. Oh, can we help? It's like, yes, you can. We have a lot of Mormons that ride the bicycles around
Oh yeah, you
Phoenix.
must out there in the Southwest.
We
That's
have
true.
multiple Mormon temples that are gigantic here. So they are very impressive buildings. I've never gone in. There's like one day a year that the gentry can come and see them, but I've never gone to one of them. But they're
I actually,
apparently
I
quite impressive.
the one here in DC was recently they had a bunch of renovations, so they desanctified it and let the public like wander around a little bit inside, like in a very like approved like line of where you're allowed to be. And I went through it to take a look, and yeah, it it had a stronger, kind of what do you call it, like fancy hotel vibes more than thing. But as I went through it, I kind of realized, oh right, they have these like rituals and stuff that can only happen at a temple, right? And so like they need a lot of individual like rooms that are more or less identical where they can like churn out these, where people want to get married or sealed or whatever. Like that, I guess you can get married outside, but yeah, you get sealed or whatever. Like these have to happen in very specific, sanctified places. So they have to like whole like, these little beautiful lobbies with crystal things and white wall and white carpet, like where you just like burn through these rituals. I'm like, "Yeah, that's their way of doing stuff.
Yeah,
Cool."
one of the best DMs I ever had was a nice Mormon guy. We had a lot of fun and playing D&D together. So
Yeah, it's just
cheers.
like very different from like a kind of big old Catholic cathedral or something
Oh
that
yeah.
you know
Well, it's also a more modern, it's
yeah,
they haven't been making, it hasn't been 2000 years of,
right.
so they'll be stuck in the 90s for next 1000 years. So that's good. All of their just be like
Well, at least they're not stuck in the 1890s.
that's true. That's at least something, right?
All
I
right,
was just
maybe,
thinking
maybe
of
we,
like how do you progress something like
yeah.
that started.
I guess this isn't a religion cast. Let's
Right. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, religion is a a whole topic in role playing games that,
It definitely is.
we should probably do a show about that. But yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of wandering around, but yeah, I think what have I been doing since, I mean, other than talking to random people about role playing games. It's just like sort of this but yeah, I think I might have mentioned that my entire crew, well, we're still playing Delta Green with Brendan. The the local crew is still doing Delta Green. We're playing different characters trying to rescue the characters from the last game. So,
Hmm.
so like there's a coven of, I'm gonna say, I want to say they're Baba Yaga worshippers. Like these Russian Baba Yaga worshippers are like holding a couple of the last party in their well, we're now stuck in an alternate dimension, but we'll figure our way out of that, I suppose, or that's our shortcut to get there. But it's been, you know, we're been very creepy. It's been very cool.
Are you still the not the special forces group, still the
no,
the technical support group,
we're
or
now
are these
more
characters
of
more special forces?
we're now more operators.
Mhm.
I'm a nurse paramedic, so I'm basically the med tech of the group, and then Adam is playing his best impression of every red cap uh mercenary dude with the like Oakley glasses and the like all of the guns and pockets.
Nice.
And we've got, actually we do have one guy playing his character that went crazy, but he's come back to be the X-party expert. That's Colette's character. And then Heiligman is playing kind of call him a information, like a, what do you call that? When you're in the spy business, he's like one of those guys that you kind of send to a place to kind of control the operatives there. So he's
Like a
the
handler or a
he's like a, yeah, a handler for Eastern Europe, has got kind of tied up in this mission to go rescue the the old party. So but yeah, we went through a, you know, dark Ukrainian village that's alternate dimension. There's this weird, like all these children with out eyes and like giant lanky dude with gas masks, and you know, avoided combat with those and hide.
Yeah, that's like from the what I view the most terrifying Doctor Who episode flashback of that little kid with the friggin' gas mask face. Nope.
Are you
So
my
not touching
mommy?
that.
Are you my mommy?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Get the
that's
hell
one
away.
of the better episodes of that show.
Yeah, I like that you took the advice from Cthulhu Dark. I remember playing an early playtest of like Cthulhu Dark, and it was like the first rule of Cthulhu Dark is if you fight a mythos creature, you die. That's very Cthulhu.
Yeah, well, we're all armed this time and mostly able to use these weapons, and we mostly saw the situation, and we're like, yeah, we don't have enough bullets for that, let alone if they'll actually work. So it's like time to hide. Um, so,
Pro
and
strat,
you know,
pro
just
strat.
looking on this situation was losing sanity. So, yeah, so that's kind of been a lot of the, you know, we kind of were hoping to get that going again yesterday, but somebody was sick from their journeys, so we postponed for another day. This seems to be more of a regular thing, not this person getting sick, but every, you know, getting, you know, life is finding a way, but also just like, you know what, we're just gonna just kind of slow our roll. It's not like this all like the before times when everything was like, oh yeah, we're like getting together much more on the regular. So
Right. Gotta keep that schedule, yeah. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's definitely a trend towards more chill, more we'll do it when we can do it, which, is worrying for, anybody that's doing like a scheduling thing, because scheduling is ultimately the big problem with a lot of gaming. And man, if people
Yeah.
can't make it even more than usual than before, like it wasn't like scheduling was easy before.
right. Yeah, because I'm really I've been looking at the new. There's a new edition of Pendragon coming out,
Tempting.
and I am really tempted to like. I think there's a starter pack or whatever, and then the new edition's coming out soon. I'm assuming at Gen Con, which we'll get to in a minute, but I'm really tempted because I really want to play that game, and I can't imagine trying to pull off like the 90 session the Pendragon campaign in this nowadays. Like it would be like 10 years to try and get through that. I feel like.
Right.
Well, I'm going to bring up something that I know we'll only spend just a tiny amount on, and that's totally fine. But as someone who is very frequently running for brand new players, you also got an experience with brand new players recently, right?
Oh, right. Allow me to have a big drink. Yeah. So some guys from work asked me to run a game of D&D for them. First of all, it's a game of D&D. So I was like, well, there's all these other games. No, we want to play D&D. I was like, well, not gonna not. All right, so you want to play D&D? We're gonna play D&D. So we got together over the internet because like they were kind of I didn't like three of them were in one spot, one another, and then I was like, well, I'll bring Paul in as my like ringer PC if I need to like help steer without like being, or help them without being too heavy-handed of a GM. So, well, what I will say is, and I'm not particularly surprised by this, that one person who is about 40 acted like they were 14. And I didn't realize that people still were amused by the fact that rapier sounds like something else. That was, that was quite a bit of the joke as the rogue was using their rapier to fight undead minotaur and some skeletons I set up as a training combat. So, and then the next fight, and then the next fight. Yeah,
That's
it
a little
was.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there was something else that was way more unfortunate that I said no, absolutely not.
No, thank you, evil.
Yeah, I was like, somebody asked or asked if they could, well, rapier. So, and I said, nope, no, you can't. Sorry, not happening. We're just gonna move on now. I
And
literally
that,
had.
folks, is why we use safety tools at the game table.
Yeah, there was
Like,
literally like I had told my friend, and like I got a couple of like X cross hands in the video, and I was like, yeah, it's not happening. I mean, I I could have just had the villagers kill him, but I didn't. So, but then, well, I thought it was cool because they basically got teleported from this like necromancer dying, and then basically they were on the in space and they had to help these survivors clear these spider people from their ship, and it was kind of like Alien, like a spaceship. And then when they flew away, they saw they were on the back of a giant golden dragon. I was like, that's super D&D, right? So, but I mean, they were so they were so high that they wanted to play some more, and I was like, well, I'll just set up enough goblins that are one for every one of those jokes that they made. So there were about 30 or 40 goblins that took their third level characters and ate them. It just, I was like, no, no, no. And I should have just dropped from the call, but it was like, well, I'm a bit, I can be a little bit of a vindictive GM. It's a problem I have.
I mean, it sounds like they were definitely testing things, but I do find it interesting because, like you said, we had, and thankfully not to that extent, but one of the new players for one of the D&D games I was in definitely went to like 14-year-old mode, and their character's name was Big Staff, and they definitely like were looking for the biggest staff, literally looking for the biggest staff, right? Like, but also not shy to pass around rumors of why his nickname was Big Staff or why his name was Big Staff.
What
So
age was this group?
I was the youngest.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So yeah, it was an adult group, but I think it's just maybe that's just the experience of like first time D&D players. Now, thankfully, my kiddos, of course, we go through the safety protocol, like the whole this is no thank you topics, and this is caution topics, and this is okay topics. And I've already like no thank you all of the like inappropriate sexual situations because I'm not going into that with preteens and teens. Just no, we're not dealing with romantic relationships or any of that. That's a no thank you for me. So we don't get that level at the table, but we do definitely get the like childish jokes. But again, they're preteens and teens, so not super surprising. 40-year-olds apparently are not immune to the beginner D&D immaturity either. So
Yeah. I mean, I get it that is a freeing experience, but also, I think that somewhat that Dungeons and Dragons media of people playing has also kind of spread this, because I would have figured that as the game got broader that we would get, you know, we would get more, but no. No.
I mean,
It was a bit of a flashback to, I mean, actually, you know what? I think we were way more mature than that for most things when I was in high school. Like,
Yeah, there were
stop me
some
if I'm wrong,
inappropriate
Nolan.
things. There
There
were
was
some
some,
inappropriate things in high school, but not like that. Like that wasn't. It wasn't the joke, right? It was It wasn't a joke like that, right? It wasn't like just punning and like about sexual violence and that kind of thing. It was there was definitely a kind of like, oh, you can do anything in this game. Like, well, I want to have sex. Like there was definitely that kind of shit did happen in high school. Like, but it
I'm
wasn't
getting drunk.
right. Exactly.
right. I
Uh,
mean, there is the first time that people experience charisma, as a role, right? And for those that are,
Oh, you put
isolated, like,
you put a number on it. Oh, I'm gonna get the
right.
biggest number, and that means something about bust size or something. Yeah, like that's
Yeah,
always a very teenager thing, right? Like,
right. But it wasn't like this was maybe a new low, but also people are, like everybody's like, "Oh yeah, no, I get it. Why you love this." Which is a good thing that people get why I'm constantly going on about this and why I continue to play this stuff for, well, I'm going to die soon amount of times. So,
I do have a question,
yeah.
because I haven't actually tried out that resource yet that I sent you, and I'm hoping to be able to try it out for this group that I have. Did anyone end up using that little cheat sheet things that I sent?
No, I didn't have the like I was just trying to get them going. And
Yeah.
I didn't I unfortunately did not get to use that. If I was more organized I would have, but I did not. So we'll
All
have
right.
to we'll have to give that a go some other time, but
I will be I'll let you know how that works out because I'm hoping that my kiddos are gonna play test that this coming week to see if it'll help them figure out how to role play a little easier. And it's just like these little cheat sheets that
I was gonna.
that like basically you set up for your character like type in class, and that way like you know exactly what options you have for actions and exactly what options you have for bonus actions, and then of course like what the movement looks like, and then it includes like the standardized things, but it also includes like any variation that you would have with your class features, or any like species features, which I know it's called race, but I'm moving to call it species. So
I mean
all of my
there
kids
are
call it.
many ways to call that, whatever we're gonna call that in the future. We'll put it. Can you send me a link? I'll put it in the show notes for whatever those people.
Yeah, I'll have to find it. I got it from Kickstarter, so I'll have to figure out where it's even available.
I remember why I didn't use it, and that's because I was using Roll20's character sheets, and I was doing it really quickly. So I was, instead of like trying to input all the special stuff, I was just using the classes from the SRD,
Yeah.
which is already inputted in there. So I was just using whatever was in Roll20. I was like, oh yeah, no, you're totally a flame wizard. Done. Like done. Like whatever
makes a ton of sense to me.
Whatever was in there. And shout out to Paul for playing one of the greatest wizards, because he was basically like an Italian stereotype wizard who stood in the back and smoked cigarettes, and then when he had to throw a flame bolt, he would just take the cigarette and throw the cigarette, and it was great. It was so good.
That's amazing.
He really did save my sanity playing this wizard during this game, because it's like, man, I get it that when you first play D&D, you basically play yourself. Like, there's no characterization, like none. And I was trying to, and I did get around to encouraging them, and they kind of got like, and I told them, like, if you describe your action in a flavorful way, I'm going to be more predisposed to let this happen. You know, trying to get, and I did get a few of those, so I call that some small, very small victories in a rough experience. So, yeah. So that was a thing I did. So, I am out of a beverage, so I think that might be time. This might be the time for the last question. So I'm gonna roll on the chart from our patrons, our lovely patrons at patreon.com/fullmetalrpg, from our Discord channels. I'm gonna roll a d20. It just happens to be about 20 questions, and we'll see what the last question is, and you know, maybe we'll be more verbose than we normally are on the last question. So I got an 18. So I'm assuming that is a Morden Crimson question, because he contributed most of these. Thanks, Ben. 18. In what ways have you seen TTRPG campaigns fail? In what ways has that changed the way you run games to prevent it from happening in the future? Noland.
Right. All right. So snap question. All right. So the most frequent way for Noland's campaign to fail is Noland writes a bunch of hooks and writes a bunch of stuff, and people enjoy Noland's game, and then Noland is like, man, this has built up a lot of expectations, and I don't know that I can write a thing to write a conclusion to this like game that lives up to all the things people like imagine it could be. And then Noland's like, I can't, you know, the games get less and less frequent. I'm like, I can't finish this. That's my most frequent failure mode for my game. I've been blessed to have, you know, lots of good friends that are totally into this thing, so I don't have the scheduling kind of problems that a lot of people do. But that is the single most common failure mode for my games. And what I've been trying to do in order to work around it and adapt it is to run more short campaigns, is to go to a mini series, you know, 8, 10, 12, you know, episode campaign. And then it's like, it's not built up this huge, you know, unfinishable thing that a game that's like, oh my God, these players have invested like, you know, a year and a half, 2 years in this game. And like, can I ever live up to that, you know, like conclusion? And of course, dropping it on the floor is the worst thing I could do, but yet somehow it still happens due to my anxiety or whatever. But a game that only goes 8, 10, 12 sessions, I feel like, oh yeah, I see the narrative arc here, and I can like try and shoot that. So that's how I've been trying to address it. recently, and I haven't had any kind of mega uh, year-long plus campaign since we've moved into kind of all being more geographically dispersed and online play. There's not been kind of super long-term campaigns in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to respond to what you said here. I'm going to say to all you and all of our best GMs out here, which I is yes, you can build up expectations, but like it doesn't matter. Like as long as you're like using some of the player input, like I think you can totally get to where the end of this, whatever it is. Like I can get why that's a mental roadblock. I it as a I'm gonna admit that I'm more of a player than a GM. I love GMing in its own way, and I'll get super excited about things. But uh, most most of my campaigns fail to launch because I don't have enough self-esteem to launch them. I guess is it. You think about like these long games, the expectation gets too high. Like I get my own expectations up, and then I'm like, well, I'd have to write a bunch of shit to make that work. So I'm gonna, uh, uh, not go ahead and start these things. Most of the ones I start tend to go and without scheduling tend to go. The scheduling issues are always going to be an issue, and there have been some of those, but it's mostly like when I get like, all right, I'm kind of done with this. Okay, now we're gonna have the scene where everybody dies. I mean, it's cyberpunk, so everybody ends up dead. 'Cause you all got money and then you died.
Of course.
So, Kayla,
I have thoughts.
yes,
I think that like I mean I am on the flip side there of like I am almost always running games now and not playing in them as often. And say that like looking over it, I don't think that I've been part of any campaigns that have failed. I've definitely been part of campaigns that have gone in directions that I as like a player would probably not find fun. And that's kind of like my bar of like what's a success versus a failure, but my players were having fun. So is that a failure? Like I don't I've had to kind of like step back and be like, well, if all the players are having fun, then even though we're not like they're not latching onto any of my storyline that I'm throwing at all, and we're just playing basically Pokemon and D&D or whatever the hell they're doing, um, then is that necessarily a failure? So where I saw them going, is that where I was hoping that they would hook on to? Not necessarily. Like I thought we were going to tell a story, but like, I think that that's part of kind of knowing what your players, like, want out of it, and I saw a really cool idea for, it's technically, I think, under the headline of safety tools, right? But, stars and wishes, and it's like a way to kind of wrap up each session with, like, your stars, so your highlighted moments of the session, like, what you found really awesome and interesting, and wishes of things that you, like, would like to see in the future. And I think that I'm going to start incorporating that into my games just to, like, check in with everyone and see, like, where are they, like, having the most fun, and where would they like to see storyline going, and that way I kind of am getting more feedback to make sure that they are in fact enjoying the campaign and telling a story that they want to tell, even if it's not a story that I was anticipating writing or being a part of. So I think that it's definitely interesting. But then like as a player, that's fun is what I'm looking for, right? Like if I can say that I had fun in a thing, then it's a win no matter what the situation overall is. So and thankfully I can say that for the most part I find at least find my own way to have fun if the storyline isn't necessarily all that engaging to me. So
yeah. Well, what I want to say to that is, uh, as the game master, as the dungeon master, you should be having fun. Now your situation is a little different, feel, with the being a professional. That's a little different, but in a personal game, if you're not having fun as the game master, you know, there's got to be something that changes so you can have fun, right? It's you shouldn't just suffer through a campaign that you're running if you're not you're not doing it for money. I'm just gonna say,
Yeah, well, and that's not like, yeah, my situation definitely at work is a little different than like in a normal game, but I think that like part of it also is like the unique perspective that the age groups that I'm running for, right? So I've got preteens and teens. They are going to want to tell a different story than adults are going to want to tell, or they're just going to tell it in a way that I couldn't anticipate, which is totally fine. I think that I'm just having to like step back, and of course, like I suffer the same problem of like being very hard on myself about like making sure that everyone is having fun or telling a good story, or that I like have a good story arc, right? And then like being okay with letting that go and just saying, well, they're making their own fun. So I guess this is the story we're telling now.
well, and that's that's I feel like that's a lot of groups, even if they're not preteens and teens, they're making their own fun, and a lot of GMs go with them, right? So we should, as long as you're having fun going with them and not just, oh, I'm dreading having to run Poke D&D again, like
I mean,
there should be something, but I
yeah,
understand.
no, I think that it's less of me not having fun and more of me like judging the fact that they're like doing this as, oh, they don't want to engage in the story that I'm setting, and like where have I failed in this, and and then having to like change my perspective of maybe I haven't failed, maybe this is just the type of fun that they want to push for, and let's figure out how we can make that a thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
So,
well, I believe we've
oh, okay.
go ahead, Noland.
Go ahead. Sorry, I just had one thing on Kayla's thing there. I
Yes.
thought her thing on Stars and Wishes was interesting, and maybe it's a topic at some point on RPG feedback on figuring out what your players are about. I think the Stars and Wishes thing evolved from the some indie game nonsense about Roses and Thorns, as I recall, was the original game, where it's like players tend to have the feedback when you ask them for feedback at the end of the game. They're like, "No, it's good, thanks, good." And you're like, "Oh, I can't, like, whatever." And so someone had invented kind of a rules where it's like everybody has to give me a rose, something that they liked about the game, and a thorn, it's something that was bad about the game. Uh, and then I think the thorns reviewed as like somewhat negative, so Stars and Wishes like evolved out of that. Like, okay, instead of saying what you didn't like, say what you'd like to see in the future, right? Like, and but yeah, maybe we should talk about game feedback for GMs
Yeah, I think that's an
at some
excellent
point.
topic. And yeah, so we'll put that on the list of topics when I'm when I'm feeling more structured. um, but I want to thank everybody for hanging out for a minute with me and talking about RPGs. Because if I don't, I just go into the mall and talk to random strangers about RPGs. So keeping me off the street in the game room, that's what
And
our
that's how RBK gets murdered. So thank you for keeping him off the streets and not getting murdered.
L. I will thank the patrons at patreon.com/fullmetalrpg for continuing their grand support of this exercise and keeping me from being stabbed randomly at the mall for asking people about RPGs. Uh, and patreon.com/fullmetalrpg or fullmetalrpg.com is our link tree. You can find where we're on YouTube. This will be on YouTube, and you can see my new glasses. Also, there's some merch in there. You can see some lovely drawings that some of our our lovely supporters and artists have done. And I'll probably you know what? I'm going to engage a new artist and see if I can get another piece here soon. So keep an eye out for that. Come on the Discord. It is the most fun to play on this Discord, and not play. Well, we do play. There were some people that played early on, but just having long conversations about what's going on in the RPG world, you're missing a lot of interesting topics if you're not on the Discord. So please join the Discord. And thank you everybody for coming out and hanging out with me. And Noland and Kayla, everybody, say goodnight. Good night, everybody. Rock.